You see, when you say something right to a woman, she smiles, tickles her brain, which in turn sends blood flowing down to her sex hole. But her smile could also be deceptive, and could indicate one of 117 different things. Sarcasm, incredulity, condescension, confusion, contemplation, facetiousness. So in the very brief time that Anakin and Padmé are together, they decide to get married as well. And don't say it was the will of the Force unless you don't want me to send you a pizza roll. And when I send it to you, I'm gonna shove it up your ass. So other than being a handsome guy, let's analyze what Anakin did to win over Padmé. 1. When Anakin first meets Padmé, she's like, "Oh, hello." And then she drops an unintentional Freudian phallic reference.
My goodness, you've grown.
Win. Good looks. Then the very first thing that comes out of Anakin's mouth is a very awkward and inappropriately placed compliment.
So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean.
Inappropriate compliment. She smiles lovingly and dismisses it as nerves. Women don't mind an initial nervousness from a guy. It's complimentary and cute to them. But it gets old real fast. Assertiveness needs to take over quickly. But too much assertiveness and arguing with your boss to impress her comes off as a pathetic and desperate attempt for attention. Inappropriate assertiveness. Next, women like when you ask them questions about things. They like to talk about themselves a lot and don't really care what you have to say. For example, in this next scene, Padmé mentions how she's worked for a year on legislation to oppose the Military Creation Act, or something.
I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act.
Even if you could care less about this shit, you just pretend like you do. You can say, "Well, that sounds interesting. Tell me about this piece of legislation." Then she'll start running her mouth, and you could think about sex while she's talking. Occasionally you should nod, and always be prepared with some follow-up questions. Instead, Anakin misses this very obvious lead and immediately starts talking about himself and his Jedi stuff.
I am truly thankful to be his apprentice.
Talking too much about yourself and your job. She doesn't care. Then it gets worse. He starts bitching and complaining about his job and his boss, almost to where it seems like he's gonna start crying.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand.
Keep in mind that this
It's
is
not
only
fair.
like their second scene together. I can only imagine what she's thinking.
Holy shit, this guy is a fucking annoying whiner. I really can't see myself with him. If he's bitching about this, imagine how he'll act when I want him to go see Wicked with me.
And then... creepy sex looks. And if a woman ever says you're making me uncomfortable,
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
it's usually not a good sign. Unless she's into that sort of thing. So when they're on the transport ship, Padmé does a little feeler to see if Anakin and her can fuck in the bathroom.
Are you allowed to love? Thought that was forbidden for a Jedi.
Anakin responds with an earnest yet clumsy response about a loophole in the Jedi doctrine about love. This kind of pleases her, so we'll give him a point. Finally, they arrive at the most romantic city in the universe, and Anakin scores a few points early on, carrying her luggage.
I was relieved when my two tongues were up, but when the Queen asked me to serve as
Listening to her prattle on
I couldn't
about
refuse.
herself. For a few minutes, it seems like he's learning, but then he goes back to being a prick.
But I was thinking...
Hold on a minute.
Excuse me.
Interrupting,
Excuse me.
losing temper,
I'm sorry, my lady.
forced apology. So then he stammers on, trying to make some kind of analogy about sand.
It's coarse, rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Which could be the dumbest line ever in movie history. And then she kisses him. And it's like,
No.
now go back to looking at my extremely revealing and sexy outfit, you dumb idiot. So their next date is at the waterfall. Anakin tries to discuss politics and admits he supports a fascist dictatorship. Later that night, in a romantic fireside setting, Padmé is changed into a sexy S&M outfit and teases this guy even more. Then he starts crying.
The closer I get to you, the worse it gets.
Then he starts begging for sex.
I will do anything that you ask.
But she still tells him no because she's a senator?
I'm a senator.
Let the guy get his rocks off! Next, Anakin murders women and children, brings a corpse home, and goes on a psychotic megalomaniacal rant.
Why'd she have to die? I will be the most powerful Jedi ever. I will even learn to stop people from dying. He's jealous. I killed them. They're dead. And the children, too. And I slaughtered them like animals.
To be angry is to be human.
And then, even though Anakin's strikes far outweigh his successes, she still marries the guy after knowing him for only like 3 days. You know what? I take it all back. I take back every piece of criticism I ever said about the guy. George Lucas, I present you with the totally and completely understands women trophy. You've earned it, my friend. You've earned it.